Hey, heroic fatherhood, good afternoon. It's a Friday. Isn't that awesome? And I want to tell you how excited I am right now because I have the one, the only Sean Singleton sharing my screen on screen left. He is the founder of PopLyfe, which we're going to hear all about today. And I am just super excited to invite him to be part of this ongoing series that we're calling Dad's Making a Difference, where in the run up to Dad 2.0, we're interviewing a bunch of dad bloggers to talk about their story, to talk about what inspired it, and to really shine a light on the messages that they're taking out for dads. Sean, thanks so much for being here with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. So I got to tell you guys, so everybody who's watching, I usually take notes with my calls. But I talked to Sean. I took no notes because we were laughing too hard because of the memories of being at Dad 2.0 last year. There were some inappropriate things that happened that were way too funny and cannot be repeated in this moment.
They were drink fueled.
Right. Yeah. And additionally, it was more like, like reconnecting with somebody and doing personal therapy because, like I was having a day and I was like, Sean, I'm having a day. And Sean's like, what's going on? And at the end of it, I was like, I feel better. And then I got off the phone and I looked at my notes. I'm like, oh, I didn't take any notes about the interview. So there's a whole lot of winging on it that's going on in the interview today. And I'm just super excited about having Sean here to join us. Sean, first of all, tell us about your blog. Tell us where do people find you? How do they know you in this space?
So I blog mainly at thepoplyfe.com. Most of the articles that I write, I generally will post them on Medium, which is a blogging platform. And I generally will write there just because there's a little bit more freedom to kind of write whatever I want, and I can detach it from the brand if I want to do that as well. But generally, I'll kind of do a little bit of cross-pollination either on my site at thepoplyfe.com or on the blog at Medium, which is medium.com/Sean505. But you can put that in the production.
You can put that all in. So I hear that you're blogging now. So because we have people who are going to watch this who are bloggers, and we have people who are going to watch this that aren't. So what I heard you say was that you blog over at poplyfe.com and you're over on Medium, but you separate it from the brand. What's the brand?
So the brand is the PopLyfe, which is a brand that celebrates dads. That's basically our tagline. And the reason why I started the PopLyfe was I'm a designer by trade. That's my career, my profession, and also my hobby. And so what I wanted to do was, I've been kind of looking around for something to kind of do on the side, just to kind of keep my creative juices flowing, so that I was doing things outside of work. And I came up with the idea of, doing a t-shirt brand and t-shirt line for dads, specifically for dads, because I wanted to work around a theme as well. So I wasn't just throwing out, t-shirt designs, but I wanted to have something that I could actually attach a passion to, and something that I was passionate about and always been passionate about, is being a good dad, and a present and involved dad. And it evolved from there. Actually, after I found the Dad Bloggers group, I found a community of guys that had the same kind of passion for fatherhood, and I didn't realize that it existed in the way that it does online. And so that was a lot of what fueled putting the brand together in the first place. When I started out the very first year, I was kind of, just going with it. Like I said, it was just really an idea. And then as I got more and more involved with the community of dads that I found, I was able to evolve the brand as well and make it more of something that was more meaningful, not only to myself, but to, the audience that I was building in that time as well.
Okay, cool. So wait, so I hear this, like, it's not just blogging, but you actually want to make it like a public statement, right? Like if somebody's going to wear a t-shirt that's got a theme around celebrating dads, this is a big deal. And I heard you say this is something you're passionate about. What's the root of like what inspires you or inspired you around celebrating dads?
Funny, I think that was one of the things that we talked about when idea that, we'll walk around and as dads and men in general, we'll walk around and we'll wear sports jerseys and we'll wear, things that represent our favorite team. But we don't necessarily look at fatherhood with that same kind of passion. And so what inspired me originally, and just my whole passion behind fatherhood, was my story, which was growing up without a dad. My parents divorced when I was 3 years old, and I had spent pretty much my entire just kind of having this, the questions around, why my dad wasn't around. And eventually I found out the story. I understood that, my once my parents separated, I found out around the time I was probably 9 years old, he had passed away. So I went for several years up until I was probably 30 years old, not really knowing the story of what happened to my dad. So, I had spent all those years kind of wondering, well, why would somebody not, get in contact with their kid if, if they were divorced or whatever. And so those were the things that kind of, I think built my desire to, when I became a father, I was going to be around for my kids, no matter what happened, whether I was, divorced or whether I was on the other side of the world. I was going to make sure that, I was always in contact with my kids. And so I think that was the driving factor to start with, is just not having my kids not experience what I experienced when I was a kid, which was just having those questions of, why don't I hear from you, kind of thing.
Right. And it really sounds like in the circumstance that you grew up with, that there was a lot of, to be a dad, an involved dad, there's like a lot of just making it up as you go along.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the funny thing is, I think people question me all the time. They're like, well, you grew up with without a dad. What made you so passionate, or how is it that you figured out all these things? And it's like, I think maybe, as involved dads, all the guys that are in our communities, I think, people, they look at us like we know what we're doing at all times, because we put on this persona of, professional father, in a sense, and realistically it is. It's just day by day, you're just kind of learning new things every single is what the next move is. Always have things figured out, but you just kind of, you learn as you go. And I think if you anchor it all in that passion of being involved and being there for your kids, it makes it really easy. Oh, sorry.
Sounds like modern life. Well, it's really funny, because the thing that occurs to me is, no matter what you think of the way that you were brought up, as a dad, I had a mom and dad who were together right up through, almost through high school. And there were things about my dad that I want to make sure to take with me and share with my kids. Right. And there were things about the way I was raised that included my dad that I'd like to leave behind as well. But it gives me something to measure against. And it seems like for you, there was like, here's a blank slate. Let's just build it up. Where did you find your inspiration? Where did you I get that this is what so strikes me about your story. Like, where did you look for? Where did you get your inspiration? What was the thing that where did you use for building blocks?
So yeah, this is another question I think I've been asked before as well, because I didn't have a dad around. The same question is kind of like, how did you figure out, how to be a dad? Where did you get, the father figures from? And I think the thing is that I took from my uncles and my mom. I think being a dad is not always about being a man, in a sense, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds with that kind of thing, but it's really about being a good parent. And that's really, so it's like, if you can look at things that your mom does and the ways that she takes care of you and nurtures you, and you can apply that to being a father as well. So there was a lot of things that I took from my mom, but as far as male figures go, a lot of them were my uncles, my dads, my teachers, my coaches, learning how to talk to kids and how to talk to people in your lives. I think that's where a lot of my inspiration kind of came from. A lot of my role models really came from was those people that I just kind of came across in throughout my life.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not uncommon to say some of the greatest male wisdom I've ever received was from men who were standing on a broom with a key ring this big on them. I can't tell you the number of times I've run into somebody who's working janitorial services in a building, and I'll start up a conversation with them, and before you know it, they have so much wisdom to hand me. And yeah, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say I totally agree. There's times I think I remember one time recently I was at the tire shop getting my some new tires put on my car, and I was with two of my kids, and a gentleman walked up to me. I was standing at the counter. This old white guy walks up to me at the counter, and his opening line was, "Hey, you want to hear a joke?" And I looked at him. I was like, "Okay, sure." And it was an off-color joke, so we started there. But then he just started talking to me about kids these days, and he's like, "You got some beautiful kids," and that's kind of how the conversation started. And then he just started talking about how things were back in his day, and we just had this half-hour conversation. This guy, turns out he was like 90-something years old, and his parting comment was. He said that he's like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and go home now, and I think my car's ready. He's like, don't tell anybody. He's like, my license has been suspended for years. I'm not even supposed to be driving, but I told my daughter I'm still driving. So you meet. I think some of the most interesting conversations I have with people about parenthood in general and how they see fatherhood now. Or with people from that generation, people that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're a lot of those people. A lot of times are very amazed at the fact that the way dads are involved now. If we get on the subject and we start talking about it, it turns out a lot of them are generally very surprised, or they and then they talk about how it was back when when they were kids and how their fathers were like, well, my father would never take me to the park. It was always my mom, or I didn't see my dad until after dinner, not 5 times a week, 5 days a week, and on Saturdays and Sundays, don't bother dad because he's resting, that kind of thing. And so I think a lot of them have seen this change in how how dads interact with their kids and how we kind of taken on a different role.
Yeah. It's a common theme, and something I feel really strongly is like we are, as human beings, but as dads and as men, we're actually evolving in real time, and we're having a real impact on the next generation by the way that we're leading by example for our kids. Like who we are as parents is going to impact the way they are, the way they mentor others, the way they apprentice others, the way they connect with others, and the way that they parent their kids. It's going to be like this wholesale impact across the board.
Yeah. And I think that we hear, or I hear a lot of it in particular is that we're kind of a different breed in the sense that we're dads that are really focused on being involved, and that was part of my thing when I kind of got involved when I got involved in the fatherhood community. But even before that, when I thought about how I wanted to fix fatherhood for myself, was the notion that it's not necessarily cool to be an involved dad. How back in the day it was like, your role as a dad was to provide for the family financially, and provide discipline, and that was pretty much it. Like, that was your role. Like, it wasn't about like, hey, nurture the kids, stay home and take care of the kids, change the diapers, get dinner ready, that kind of thing. It was the things that we would consider, or that people considered more domestic back in the day, weren't these typical fatherhood roles. And that was something for me. Like, I definitely wanted to embrace all of that. Like, I wanted to be at home with my kids as much as possible. I wanted to be there for their school events as much as possible. And I've made my way slowly towards kind of building my professional career around the ability to be able to go and do those kinds of things, like be home with the kids, a few times a week, go to their school things if they have something for school. I was lucky enough to be home with my first daughter, my oldest daughter. I was lucky enough to be able to work from home. I worked from home for about a year and a half, right after she was born. And the only one, I think the one that kind of got the short end of the stick was my middle daughter. When we had her, I think I took off about 2 weeks from work, and I didn't get to spend as much time with her when she was little as I did with my first and my third kids. So.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, we do the best we can with what we got every day, right? Like, and there's just so many days where you're like, well, I hope I get a do-over tomorrow.
Yeah, I've moved into parenting teenagers, and that happens pretty often.
Yeah. The thing that I think the transition I've really tried to make lately is when I notice I'm off and I do that thing or I say that thing where I'm like, wow, that wasn't right, is like, no matter the moment I have that thought is to turn around and go right to the teenager or the spouse that I said that to and just be like,
yeah.
So I want to own up to that thing I did. And I just realized that was really bad, and I'm super sorry.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
we're all works in progress, just so we're clear. It's progress, not perfection.
It's a good point. I think communication has been something that has become a skill that you constantly have to work on as a dad, especially as a parent in general, and as a human. Like you said, I mean, just dealing with your spouses or dealing with people at work or whatever the case may be. But I think the one thing that I've had to really consciously work on is communication with the kids, because especially when you have kids of varying ages, you're always dealing with these different stages. I've got my youngest is 9 years old, my oldest is 16, and I've got 2 stepkids in the middle, and I've got my middle daughter as well. And so you have all these communication styles that you have to kind of navigate. I've got a teenage daughter who's 16. I've got a teenage stepson who's 15, another teenage stepson who's 13. I've got my preteen daughter, and then I've got my 9-year-old. And so there's different communication styles and manners for those stages as well. And at the same time, I'm constantly trying to figure out what's the best way to communicate with this kid so that I'm not damaging our relationship or putting them off, or I want to make sure that I'm always kind of inviting them to want to communicate with me back. So I think that's the biggest challenge for me as far as communication goes.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you find like there are few and far between Black dad bloggers? Do you find that your audience reflects that, is demonstrative of following you because you're a Black blogger, or is it more of a universal message? What do you notice?
So I think because I didn't consciously put myself out there initially, like I'd say the first, 2 years that I had started PopLyfe, I didn't necessarily put my face out there in a public manner on a regular basis. Obviously, I have some information about me on my site, and it has my picture and everything. But I didn't go into it with the intention of focusing on Black dads. And there's several blogs out there that do that. And I kind of went back and forth with it because obviously, it's talked about. So I kind of batted around the idea of whether or not I really wanted to specifically focus on Black dads or not. But there's Several, and several that I know specifically. And I think it's really more of a conscious decision to decide whether or not you want to focus specifically on that subject, because Black dads do experience different challenges, and there's definitely an avenue and a need for that voice in the fatherhood community, not only to educate or to champion Black dads, but to help other fathers and other parents understand the different challenges that Black dads have. So I haven't really approached any of my particular writing specifically around Black dads, but I have written a couple of articles around blended families. I have an interracial family. My wife is white. My kids are interracial, and then I have my two stepsons who are white. And so, from a racial perspective, those are the things that I touch on my blog and in my writing specifically, but not necessarily just on the Black dad experience. But I do get involved, and like I said, there's several guys that are involved in the dad community that I touch base with that are Black dads, and I respect their writing and respect their perspective on things as well. And I think it's important to have that perspective.
Yeah, it's like it's everybody's got their own journey, right? Mm-hmm. Like everybody's got their own journey, regardless of race, creed, color,
right?
But the additional layer that you experience that is completely foreign to a 6-foot college educated white guy, like doesn't even show up on my radar.
Right.
I think would provide a huge new source of material, but a richness and something that, I think the Black population in the United States is 13% or so, sort of 13 to 14%, that there are a lot of dads in that community who have been facing a lot of stereotypes for a long time, that I would think that your work would really resonate with.
Yeah. And, so the thing is that I think that's a portion of also another portion of my inspiration, because I grew up fatherless. I'm one of those statistics that people always tend to attach to Black dads. Unfortunately, like I said, unfortunately for me, I was one of those statistics, but I didn't suffer like I think a lot of kids do because they didn't have their dads around. I mean, it can be a completely different lifestyle if you don't have your dad around. And from that perspective, that that's something that I wanted to change, that perception of what Black dads are. And I will touch on that every now and then. I'll see articles about or stories about Black dads being absent, and people using that statistic or using that that profile of what Black dads are as a constant and as a definite kind of thing. And just the fact that I know a lot of dads in this fatherhood community, that the community that we're involved in, these guys are breaking those stereotypes all the time. And that's I think the one part of the Black dad experience that I want to help change. I don't want society to go forward. This a common in the Black community. Unfortunately, I think it still continues to happen. But I want to be those people that says, look, I'm a Black dad. I'm involved in. It hasn't changed me as a person, and I'm proud to be involved with my kids. I'm proud that I'm around my kids all the time. And I just want to be an example to help change that perception so that, people aren't always falling back on that whole, there's a lot of crime in the Black community because dads aren't around or whatever, that kind of stuff drives me crazy. But, until we can, show ourselves as a community of fathers, as far as Black dads, until we can show ourselves as a community of fathers that are always around and changing that perception, and changing those statistics, that's something we're going to have to fight against, I guess.
Yeah. Well, like your example of having gone from being a statistic to actually having to build it from scratch, right? Like building who you decided you wanted to be as a father. And, you know, like that example is, you know, that's incredibly inspiring.
Right.
How do you know? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm interviewing you, dude. I'm completely uninterested in what I have to say.
Well, I guess I should let you finish the question before I answer it.
So how do you notice? So how long have you been blogging? Let's start there.
So technically it's been about 4 years. Like I said, the blog was secondary to the t-shirt site. And really it was just, once I kind of started, you know, doing designs and things like that for, around fatherhood, I wanted to kind of start writing some, you know, thoughts and I'm not your typical, I shouldn't say typical. I'm not a professional writer. I usually write stream of thought kind of, you know, articles. Sometimes it's, you know, a handful of paragraphs just on a crazy thought that I have. Sometimes it's, you know, a prepared kind of, you know, blog posts, things along those lines. So, you know, nothing too super formal for me.
Got it. And what do you notice? What do you notice about the process of blogging? Like, most bloggers have reflected that they notice something has shifted about them, or they've learned something about themselves from the process of sharing their insights and their story. What do you notice?
Yeah, you know, I don't know that I've necessarily specifically learned anything about myself from writing because, like I said, my style tends to be more of a stream of thought, kind of conscious. You know, I'm just kind of writing what's in my head. I haven't necessarily learned anything new about myself just by even going back and kind of reading what I've written. It's just sounds like me in general. But I think, you know, I do kind of parse situations a little bit differently in the sense that when I read articles or if I hear a story that involves, you know, a dad or fatherhood or family or something that, you know, touches, you know, close to me, then I think about it from a different perspective sometimes. And a lot of that, I think more of that comes from reading other people's material and like I said, finding this, you know, community of dads and reading their articles and hearing their stories and talking to these guys. I think I get a lot more out of that than I do just from my own particular writing.
Nice. Yeah. So it's the community piece. Yeah. And you know, that's something that rings true. That's something that rings true for me as well, is like this incredible need to create community, whether it's online or in person. For me, it's incredibly important that I have both.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if people were going to follow you, they were going to say, hey, that guy's got a message I want to follow because, you know, it's Sean.
Right.
Where would they go? What mediums, what platforms would you like them to come and check you out on?
I would say, you know, my Facebook page at is it PopLyfe Shop? I forgot what my Facebook page is, but if you look up PopLyfe on Facebook, my page there is probably the best place to connect. I have a Twitter. I also have, you know, like I said, the Medium, you know, blog with some nice articles there. And then, you know, especially on Medium, you get a little bit of both. Like I said, you get some of my personal stuff. I'm a UX designer by trade, and so I write, you know, I write about that a little bit as well, and also write in just kind of in general if I want to throw some ideas out there. But yeah, Facebook, Twitter, those are probably the best two places to find.
Excellent. And we'll you know what we'll do is we'll post the link to the Medium in the comments below the video. So folks can get that after the fact. And if there was one thing you were going to share with that dad who's wondering what the hell it's all about, right? And like saying, damn, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how this is going, but it's clearly not going the way I was hoping or expecting. What would you share with them?
I would say that there's going to be challenges every day. Even on the good days, there's going to be a challenge here or there. But just always kind of just keep at it and not get discouraged. I mean, parenthood is difficult. Whether you've got one kid, whether you've got 6 kids, whether you've got more than that, and you're crazy, it's a journey, and it's a challenge. And I think it was one of the T-shirts that I was going to do, or design that I had been kicking around, was that the story of fatherhood never ends. So no matter where you're at in life, whether you've got adult kids, whether you've got infants, your job, once you have your first kid, your job as a father starts then. And from that day forward, you're always a dad, whether your kids have moved out of your house or whether your kids are with you right then and there every single day, or whether you're a divorced parent that sees your kids half the week or whatever. Even when your kids are not with you, you have to remember that you're a dad, and that you have that responsibility, and that you have that privilege of raising a child. And I would say just wear that as a badge of honor. Being a father is a badge of honor. So that's how I would look at it.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Sean. Last question for you. So we're rolling out this thing this in February that's called Own Your Morning.
Right.
So what's one thing you do first thing in the morning that helps you set you up for a great day? What's one routine or ritual you do every day that helps you set up for a great day?
Yeah, it's tough. I don't have a specific routine. The one thing I think that I have done over the past several years is at some point during the morning, I have a cup of chai. And it's really just that's that one thing that kind of gets me going. And if I don't have it, I kind of feel a little sluggish. But I throw back some chai, and that really gets my brain going, especially for a creative person. That's it's what I do all day long, every day. Is important. I think that's that.
Yep, we're really hoping Sean comes back. You back with us, Sean?
Yes. Well, I can hear you.
Okay. Hey, Sean, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you have a busy schedule. I think your kids are about to walk in. We were hoping to go for interview number 4, where kids were coming in to interrupt. This seems to be the theme of our interview series.
I'm breaking cycles all the time, dude. That's what I do.
All right. Sean Singleton of PopLyfe.com, PopLyfe. Follow him on Facebook and Twitter and Medium and all the other places. Thanks so much for making the time, man. And I trust you'll have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, man. Take care.
Take it easy.